Hey guys, it's Shara here from Woodshop Diaries, and I'm not much of a fashionista, but right now, if I ever want to look at my outfit from head to toe, I have to ask my husband to take my picture on my phone, and that serves as my mirror. So I decided that I really needed to make a floor mirror for our home so I could quit relying on my husband's poor photography skills to tell me if my shoes match my shirt. I really wanted a unique style mirror, so I made this one from brass dowels and some walnut boards to make the mirror look like it's kind of floating in the frame. So if you're ready to see how I put it together, let's get to it. The first thing I did for this project was determine the approximate size I wanted the mirror to be. Once I kind of had an idea how large I wanted to make it, I started cutting down my walnut boards. I trimmed 2 pieces of walnut to 66 inches long and 2 pieces to 18 inches long. For this project, I used my circular saw with Diablo wood and metal blades, so that way I didn't have to change between the metal and the wood blades on my circular saw throughout the project. If you want to know more about these particular blades, you can find out more in the link in the description below. But that's all I'll say for now. Once the walnut was trimmed to size, I laid it out on my workbench to see how long I wanted to make the brass dowels for the mirror. But then, basically, because I'm incredibly indecisive, I just decided that I didn't like the boards this wide, so I ended up ripping them in half. The boards were originally about 6 inches wide, so I ripped them down on my table saw to about 2 3/4 inches wide. But if you're purchasing standard dimensional lumber for this project, you could use 1x3s and be pretty close to the same size boards that I ended up with here. Funny thing, once I trimmed these down though, I still thought that they were a little bit too wide, so I ended up turning them on their side. Once I had my boards ready to go, I started working on my dowels. I needed to cut slots in the center of the dowels for the mirror to fit down into to hold it in place. For this, I made a simple jig from some scrap wood. Since I was using a 1/2 inch diameter dowel rod, I used a 1/2 inch drill bit to drill a hole in the center of a piece of 2x scrap that I had laying around. Then I used my circular saw to cut this piece along the middle of this hole. Now I could place the brass dowel in the hole and clamp it in place in the jig. Once I did that, I clamped this jig to my workbench and drew a line down the center of the dowel. I set my blade depth to a 1/2 inch deep and then cut along the center line through the wood and the brass dowel. That's just another cool thing about the wood and metal blade that I'm using. I could cut straight through the wood and right into the metal without any problems. Since I was purchasing an 1/8 inch mirror, I needed to make sure my slot was slightly larger than 1/8 of an inch. That would give me a little wiggle room so I wouldn't put too much pressure on the glass and possibly break it. The blade itself is slightly less than an 1/8 inch wide, so I cut a little more out by running the saw slightly to the left and slightly more to the right of this first cut until I had it about 3/16 to 1/4 inch wide. Once the first cut's made, it's really easy just to follow these cuts for the rest of the dowels to keep the slots the same size. Once I cut the slot in the dowel, I trimmed the dowel down to 2.5 inches long and sanded the rough edges. I did this for 6 dowels total, just clamping, cutting, trimming, clamping, cutting, trimming. Then I moved on to attaching the dowels in place. I used my 1/2 inch drill bit again to drill holes in the center of the top and the bottom mirror pieces and in the 2 places on each of the side pieces. It's important to drill these as close to perpendicular as possible so that your dowels aren't crooked when you glue them in place. It's also really important to drill these holes in the center of the board front to back. If they aren't really close to the same, one may cause strain on the mirror and cause it to crack or break. After I drilled all the holes, I taped them and used some general purpose 1-to-1 epoxy to glue these dowels in place. Side note, the tape definitely leaked some, so be careful and don't epoxy your board to your workbench. I made sure that these were nice and square once I glued them in and that the slots were running parallel to the board and then let them cure. After the epoxy had cured, I gave everything a good sanding and finished the boards with walrus oil furniture wax. It's really easy to go ahead and finish now versus later once the mirror is in place. Then I used dowel holes to assemble the frame together. I drilled holes in the ends of each board and then attached the top and the bottom pieces to one side piece with wood glue and dowels. I test fit everything before gluing on the last piece. I ordered an 1/8 inch thick mirror that was 2.5 inches shorter and 2.5 inches narrower than the inside mirror frame opening from my local glass shop. I slid it into the slots like shown to test fit everything together before allowing the glue to dry. Then I very carefully attached the last piece using dowels and wood glue and lightly clamped while the glue dried. It was really nerve-wracking to assemble this with the mirror in the middle. Every tap of the hammer and every twist of the clamp, I was so worried I would chip or break the mirror. Luckily though, it all turned out fine, and once the glue was dry, I wiped it clean and brought it inside. I really like the simple modern style of this mirror, and it looks great leaning up against the wall in our garage apartment. But the best part of all is that I don't have to ask Danny to take my picture now every time I want to check out my outfit. Hashtag worth it. So if you'd like more details on this project or to learn more about the blades used in this video, be sure to head over to the link below to check out my blog post on this project. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on what's coming next. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, happy building.